Hello, everybody. Father Pete McCormick here, and it's the next episode of Fighting Irish Fellowship. I am joined by two incredible Notre Dame students, Rachel Whitmer and Nick Jogo. They are going to join us and to be a part of a conversation as we discuss a little bit about uncertainty. All of us have probably heard on any number of occasions in these uncertain times. And while that certainly has become a line of this pandemic, it's good for us to actually talk a little bit about what that looks like. So I thought I would bring two great student athletes in to talk a bit about uncertainty in the midst of a typical routine of their own that would be very certain. I guarantee you that both Rachel and Nick could list in very specific detail what their practice schedule would look like while they're in season. They could tell you exactly where they would be at any point in the day. And now all of a sudden we find ourselves in a very different reality. So first and foremost, Rachel and Nick, welcome to Fighting Irish Fellowship.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So if you maybe just take a minute to introduce yourselves. Rachel, we'll start with you. Could you let folks know the sport that you play and also kind of where your home is?
Yeah, so I'm a junior. I'm on the swim and dive team. I do mostly sprint, freestyle, and butterfly, a little IM, but I'm home right now in Minnesota, and I'm a business analytics major, sustainability minor, and doing online classes right now, but happy to be here and connect with Father Pete.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. How about you, Nick?
I'm Nick Jogo. I play on the basketball team here. I'm a senior. I'm from a little suburb outside of Toronto, Canada. It's called Hamilton. That's where I'm home with my family right now. I'm fully graduated, but I have another year of eligibility, and I'm going to have a great time on this talk tonight.
Awesome. So maybe why don't we start with this? So you all have both no doubt heard this phrase over and over and over in these uncertain times. But yet, for us to start to think a little bit about this uncertainty and living in it is a very different reality. So maybe to start with this question, walk us through your typical schedule when you are in the middle of a season. What does that look like typically? When would you practice? What other types of things would be wrapped around your routine on a normal kind of typical schedule for you?
Yeah, so usually my alarm would go off at 5:20. I actually made a day in the life video earlier this year, so I'll just follow that. So usually we have 6 a.m. practice, and that's usually about an hour and a half. And from there, I mean, you're up early at 7:30 and ready to start the day. So we usually go to the dining hall. I have a few classes, and then our second practice of the day is at 3. And usually we'll have a lift after that, and dinner and studying, and it's just kind of that on repeat. But yeah, it's much different than here in that you're always going at school, and here it's just like I have so much free time, which is amazing and crazy at sometimes.
How much for you, Nick? What does it look like typically?
Yeah, day in the life. In season, I'll probably be waking up every day around 8:30 or so. And then my first class is at 9:30. So I live in an apartment off campus with two of my teammates, John Mooney and Juwan Durham. So I usually wake up early in the morning, make myself some breakfast, head to my first class, and then I usually have one right after. My mornings are filled with school. Around 12 or so, I'll probably hit up DC or something for lunch, grab a quick bite, and then I'll have an hour or two before practice. Usually I'll either nap or get in some rehab with our trainers, practice, and then if it's a day we lift, we lift with our strength coach right after practice. By the time we shower, wrap up and everything, it's probably like 5:36. Get some dinner with the team, and then head back to the apartment and just kind of hang out, do some homework or whatever, and usually get to bed at a reasonable time.
So here you are, right? You were able to kind of list without much thought at all what the schedule would look like. Nick, I think that Rachel has the worst end of the deal in terms of early morning arrivals.
Yeah,
8:30 versus 5:20. I think I am so grateful that that I'm the chaplain of the basketball team and not swimming. But okay, so here we are now. Schedules are all flip turned. It's debatable whether or not, Rachel, you can even get access to a swimming pool. Nick, when's the last time you've actually run up and down the court and played with anyone who kind of plays at the level of basketball that you play? So we all of a sudden have this kind of new reality that we're living into. What's that been like for you both?
Yeah, for me, it's felt just like an prolonged spring break, but with more homework. So, It's been actually relaxing in some places. I haven't had this time off of rigorous practice schedules in a long time. So in that way, it's relaxing. But again, it's just weird. Not what I'm used to have this much free time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what Rachel said about the relaxing part. I mean, I feel like so much of the time is spent like we're so busy so many times, and like I feel like every student athlete at some point has wished, they wish their life would kind of slow down and they would have more time to do things, and that's kind of what's happened right now. So in that point, it's good. I'm getting a lot of sleep, much more than I usually do. But it is a little unsettling, kind of not having a plan all day, and sometimes you wake up and you just see this long day ahead of you with absolutely nothing to do, and it can kind of overwhelm you at times. So that's kind of weird part. But I do agree that it's also slightly relaxing too.
What has it been like to go through this shift that's occurred so quickly, right? So we go from routine, rhythm, even an academic year that we can anticipate, to very little that is in fact predictable, other than the fact that there's probably some meetings back to campus that are done via Zoom. So walk me through what the initial transition looked like of like, oh my gosh, what's happening, and how have you settled into some kind of rhythm now that we're several weeks into this pandemic, and in some ways stay home orders have become the new normal for us.
Yeah, I think it was very helpful in that it kind of came in shifts. Like at first we were only gonna be home for 4 weeks, and then later, and you kind of saw each next step coming when they extended it to the staying home the rest of the semester. That's helped in that it wasn't such a sudden like you're done type of thing.
I think for my specific situation, because I was already graduated and I had no school and it was just basketball, right? And as soon as the season would finish, I would basically be doing nothing in South Bend. I would be around people, and obviously it would be different than how it's like with the social distancing. But I think I wasn't as shell shocked with the whole thing just because I didn't already have much on my plate on top of basketball. So our season did get cut short, but we played out basically a full year, and then once it was all over, I just kind of went to doing what I would do in South Bend at home in Canada. So it wasn't too much of a difference. The only big thing was not being able to see my friends and hanging out with them.
Right. I want to come back to this, Nick, and maybe to kind of reverse our order here a little bit that we've been in so far. For people in general, there's an identity that we cultivate. I think about my identity in some ways is wrapped as a priest. I've been a priest for almost 15 years. The two of you are on many levels identified certainly as a student, but also as an athlete, and then even longer, right, that swimming and basketball have been a part of your story.
Yeah.
This time in which we find ourselves now, some of those attributes of what it means to be a swimmer or a basketball player have been taken away. What's it been like to learn a little bit more about yourself, or perhaps to be a little distanced from the sport in a way that perhaps up until this point you really have not been afforded the opportunity to do so?
Yeah. I think it just makes you really look back and appreciate how much you enjoy the sport. I mean, that's at least what happens for me at these times when I can't play. I just I take back and I realize how lucky I am to be able to play them. And another big thing that I think helps is the fact that this is, a global thing, and everyone who identifies themselves as a basketball player, everyone who identifies themselves as a swimmer, they're all going through the same things where, there's all of a sudden you're unable to do the things you love to do. I feel like a big thing where what you just explained happens a lot is once people graduate and they don't, play their sport anymore, then I think a real fear sets in as to, you've been identified as this athlete, your entire life, and all of a sudden it's cut short. But I feel like with this pandemic, the fact that everybody is in a similar boat, it kind of makes it a little bit better and a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. So for you, Nick, there's been a sense that you're not the only one going through this. So even though you're isolating with your family, there's an awareness more broadly that there's a community of people who are walking through this in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, like I was on social media the other day, and I saw Jason Tatum, the star from the Celtics. He was saying how he doesn't even have access to a hoop. And so, I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, if an NBA player who makes a living off of playing basketball, doesn't have access to a hoop, and can't do the thing he loves. I mean, it makes it just like you can relate, right? And it makes it a little easier knowing that people are going through the same thing and you're not the only one kind of feeling that suffering and not being able to play your sport.
Right on. How about for you, Rachel?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything he was saying, how, it makes it easier that the whole world is going through this right now. Even my coaches, my parents are working a lot less. It's just gives us kind of that opportunity to take a step back, take a breath, and in a way, I found it a little scary in that it's given me a lot of time to think and a lot of time to become a little bit anxious about my future and about things outside of swimming, I guess, because as you're saying, I have been defined as as an athlete for my whole life, basically. So it's almost making you see the bigger picture by taking a step back, taking a break from your sport for a while, which is definitely strange.
I find that to be a really fascinating insight, Rachel, that sometimes in the midst of the uncertainty, which is in some ways another way of saying discomfort, that we're actually invited to look differently at our own selves, and that we actually might learn new things about ourselves. We might actually begin to prioritize and value different things in our own family life or in our own personal life. And I was wondering if you could just build off of this of, okay, so here you are, you've got this period of time where you actually have more time to think and to reflect. Are there one or maybe two insights that you've had during this time that you think to yourself, man, I don't know that I'd be thinking about this had this pandemic not occurred, this period of uncertainty not occurred?
Yeah, I guess what's been taking up a lot of time recently is I've been doing a lot of career exploration. I haven't really gotten the opportunity to do this during the school year just because it is so go. But a lot of times I when I have nothing else to do, I get a little nervous about my future, and I start to think about what I am. I think I might fit better in a more sustainability, nonprofit, CSR perspective. But again, I don't know that for sure, but this has just given me the opportunity to explore those options and talk to people. So that's taught me more about myself, I think.
That's cool. So if we were to kick this over to you, Nick, and build on this, this period of time that you've had, are there kind of things going through your head, insights that you've gleaned through this process that maybe otherwise, had this been a different situation, you'd be back here on campus, you'd be looking at the next couple of weeks, you're probably thinking, your parents are coming in the week of the 15th, 16th, 17th right there, might be thinking a little bit about graduation, and now it's a different reality that you find yourself in, but there's still opportunities here in the midst of this.
Yeah. First, I mean, what Rachel was saying, that's a real thing. I mean, having that kind of fear of once you really have time to step back, and especially when you can't play your sport and you have all this free time, you start thinking about, what am I going to do with my life? And, it's a fear because I'm 90% of people at this age don't know. And I mean, I feel like it's tough, especially being in a place like Notre Dame where it seems like so many of the non-athletes majorly have like their life planned out to a T and they know exactly what they want to do. And then you sometimes don't feel like you fit into that category. And then, you think of yourself as lesser because you don't know what you're doing. And, that causes anxiety, stress, whatever the case may be. But this time at home has definitely kind of helped me look back and put things into perspective and place priorities on things that I want to focus on. Because, I mean, Rachel is a junior going to her senior year. I'm a senior going to my fifth year. So I have one more year to play basketball, 1 year to, further my education. And so I really had a chance to kind of step back and say to myself what exactly it is I wanted to do and what exactly it was I wanted to focus on for my last year of college.
So this is the beauty of Fighting Irish Fellowship being hosted by a priest. I'm always a big believer that even in the midst of uncertainty, that God raises up men and women who can serve as light posts for us, who can we can look to and be like, thank God this person's in my life. In the midst of all of this, have there been people that you've been leaning on? And if so, is there a person that you might want to give a shout out to as an example of this?
Maybe not necessarily leaning on, but so my parents both work in healthcare. My dad works in a hospital, my mom in a retirement home. And, they've been working way more than usual with all this stuff going on. A lot of their coworkers have been out sick or unwilling to work, and shifts have been opening up and they've been taking shift after shift and working crazy hours. And it's just good to see like how dedicated they've been to helping people and trying to do their part in dealing with this whole battle. And they come home exhausted every day, and they just get back up and go right to work without saying a word. So I mean, I don't know if I've leaned on them in that regard, but I mean, I've definitely been inspired by the work they've been putting in during this time.
Yeah. What's most inspired you, Nick, about this?
Just the fact that like they show resiliency, and I mean, even at their age, they put their head down and they do the work, and they've done it their entire lives. And my dad did that all throughout his life, growing up, taking on multiple jobs and doing things to make sure he could provide for us. My mom constantly, staying at home with us and raising us the right way. So I mean, they keep on instilling like these values of hard work and persistence within me, even at this age, even as I'm a grown man.
Right. And you've got the opportunity almost to sit front row and watch this and think to yourself, okay, how can I begin to apply that in my own life when the opportunity is given?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you always try and translate things that you've learned from your parents into your own life, and just seeing this on a daily basis kind of really gives me the motivation to put forth the same actions within my life.
Great. How about for you, Rachel?
Yeah, similarly to Nick, I am so thankful that I have my family to be with me right now. Like I know some people are quarantining alone. I couldn't imagine being alone for so long. But on top of that, I really found that virtually the Notre Dame community is still like kept me sane right now. I still have a couple of friends who I call every week. My teammates, we all have Zooms a couple times a month, and I've noticed the student athlete welfare and development group has just done an incredible job of like, they send us emails all the time about just like mental health updates, just tips that they have, nutrition tips,
Yep.
working out. They're always checking in on us and trying to help. So I really feel like I have a lot of support right now.
That's awesome. So Rachel, you bring up something really interesting, right? Because life continues to go on and life happens. And so how do we remain kind of physically fit, mentally well, and engaged with the communities in which we find ourselves, right? Our friends and our family. What have you both found that's worked for you in the midst of this, of like just kind of making sure that you stay balanced and stay on level so that you can kind of continue to be the best version of yourself?
I've found that sticking to a schedule similarly to as I would have been at school, but making it more flexible. So if I won't be hard on myself if I broke that schedule, but having an outline for my days is really so helpful, because sometimes if I don't, I'll wake up and be like, okay, what do I do now? Do I study? Do I work out? So I work out every afternoon. I do my schoolwork in the morning. I have dinner with my family every night, and I'll be honest, it has gotten very repetitive, and maybe I need to change some things up, but it's worked, and it's given me kind of like something to look forward to wherever I am in the day. I know what's coming next. It's not like I'm totally at a loss of time and productivity.
Okay, so I'll kick myself if I don't ask this question. Nick, I'm coming to you in a minute. Cool. But do you still get up at 5:20 in the morning is the question.
No way. It's pushed back to like 9:30 a.m. now. It really is.
The next time that alarm goes off at 5:20, you're going to think to yourself, oh my gosh.
It's not going to be fun.
How about for you, Nick? How have you kind of remained balanced?
Yeah, I mean, seems like a reoccurring theme, but I mean, I agree with exactly what Rachel was saying. I think having some kind of schedule and some kind of discipline throughout your week is really important, and it kind of helps you build your day and go by this slowly. While we're all going through this quarantine, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, I'll try to do abs and legs, for example. And then another day I'll try and do another part of the body to work out. And then I'll go and shoot at a park on the days where I'm not doing legs, things like that. Just like having simple, but yet like helpful things throughout my day to just help me, stay focused. And like Rachel said, not lose all track of time, and kind of have some kind of schedule similar to what I would have if I was at Notre Dame.
Great. Great. So this is the last question, and then we'll begin to kind of cycle this thing down. But so the Congregation Holy Cross, which founded the University of Notre Dame, we are big believers in hope. So the priests are often charged to be men with hope to bring. And so I want to bring hope into the conversation because I think it's really important in the midst of uncertainty. That yes, we can recognize that uncertainty is a thing, but we don't believe that the human condition can't be transformed, and that us coming together doesn't have the capacity to overcome whatever we face. So I guess the question generally I wanted to ask is what brings you hope? What gives you hope as you think about the future?
Yeah, I guess whatever will happen, and it really is so up in the air right now in the next couple of years, and who knows beyond that. But I guess it's comforting to know that whatever happens, like, you have your support system, and you have, you know, your personal values. So you're gonna make the right decision. You might not make the right decision, but you'll make the same decisions you would if things went well, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
so keep going.
I was just saying, then you have your family and friends to help you through the hard times, and you're not doing it alone. You're doing it with the whole world. So yeah.
I love that answer, Rachel. Thank you. That you begin to see and perhaps even more closely align yourself with those people that are most proximate to you. And I found in my own personal life that they really are ambassadors for hope. They kind of pump me up and give me calm when I need it, and a kick in the pants when I need that too. But it's a good reminder that hope oftentimes comes with those people who are closest to us. How about for you, Nick?
I think what gives me hope for the future is probably the fact, I mean, it sounds corny to say, but it's just like things happen for a reason, and you know, it's all part of a plan. For example, I mean, some of the positives from this corona stuff has been, you know, cities have been cleaned up. There've been positive effects to things that have happened, and I feel like things happen for a reason. I mean, for all we know, this coronavirus outbreak could prepare us as a society much better for something even worse to come down the line, and you know, it'll help us mitigate, I mean, further threats. So I mean, the only thing, obviously it's tough to look at it now while we're in this whole deal, and you know, everybody's quarantined and feeling the effects of, you know, social distancing, but I think it's important to just realize that things happen for a reason, and you know, you remain hopeful that this will ultimately, you know, be a positive thing rather than a negative one.
Right. You never know the groundwork that it's beginning to lay, right?
Yeah.
That you never know like how and what insights it's going to provide so that we can be even better prepared for, like what you said, Nick, something that could be even more severe coming in the future. I listened to Bill Gates talk not too long ago, and he said, you know, nations spend a lot of money on kind of physical machinery to defend their borders. But he kind of asked this question of what does this mean longer term then in terms of the biological reality that we face? How can we make sure that we're prepared for this type of reality so that we can care for people well and keep people healthy and safe and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because so much of the money that we invest is for stuff that most likely brings us returns and like tangible, you know, like evidence of why we spent it and why we use it. But for example, this healthcare stuff we could have spent so much money on this infrastructure and we may not have seen the benefits of it for many years down the line. So it is tough to justify, you know, spending large amounts of money for things that may not happen. But obviously this coronavirus has taught us that, you know, anything can happen and we need to be prepared.
Well, listen, I want to thank you both, and I feel that it's my responsibility to say what gives me hope, and what gives me hope is this conversation that I've had with the two of you. Thank you for your honesty, your candor, and the way that both of you have just been great ambassadors for the university. And especially as we continue to live in these uncertain times, let's continue to be people of hope who bring hope to the world in which we find ourselves, and certainly also to have real clarity about the people in our midst, to continue to show them love and care and our deep appreciation for them. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Nick. So grateful that you were willing to participate on Fighting Irish Fellowship. This was our second time, our second episode. So you guys are definitely going to be in on the ground level if this thing ever gets any kind of real traction. So thank you for joining us for Fighting Irish Fellowship. and I hope you have a great, great night, okay?
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Father Pete.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.